Welcome back. Today, I'm going to try to solve some puzzles on chess.com. If you're new to my channel, I'm not a titled player or a chess coach. I'm just a random person who enjoys chess and holds out a little hope of eventually getting better at it. The idea of puzzles is that you're given positions that are supposedly from chess games. Sometimes they're made up positions in which you have to find the best move. I have checked some old puzzles from chess books that predate modern chess engines, and sometimes those have more than one solution when you look at Stockfish or another advanced chess engine. There was just another solution that the creators of the puzzle couldn't see. But as far as I know, all these modern chess puzzles that are on these websites have been checked with the engine, and there is only one best move. Now, I don't always find it, but I have developed a little bit of a checklist to help me find it. The checklist includes looking for material count to see, if I'm way behind, in which case I'm probably looking for a mate. Also looking for checks, captures, threats. Here I'm playing with the black pieces. Okay, so I only have 3 pieces to consider here. I don't yet have a checkmate. If I check with my rook down here on g1, their king just escapes. I can't take their pawn. Actually, I can take their pawn with my rook. That's a capture there. I was going to say I couldn't take it with my king because their rook is defending that, but I can take it with my rook. And then their rook is pinned. Would they capture me? And if so, when I captured back, is their king going to come forward and then I would go forward? And I think I can win that endgame. But I also, in endgame puzzles like this, I use process of elimination, so I can eliminate this pawn. And this pawn literally cannot move right now, so I don't have to consider it. So that's either a king move or a rook move. I don't know what rook moves would make sense other than checking or taking this pawn. And like I said, checking just results in them escaping around the rook, and then what? I bring the rook back? Taking the pawn results in them taking, and then me taking. And I think no matter what they do, I can win that. I think as long as I keep my king in front of the pawn, then I should be able to advance it to promotion. And if I make a king move, what's my king going to do? I can go forward, I can go backward, I can get in front of my rook, but that doesn't make sense, right? If I move over here, they're just going to check me and then take my rook afterward, I think. Or they could move their king. I don't know why they would. If they moved their king, I think I would just take their rook. And when they took, then I would get in front of my pawn and start advancing it. I can't think of any downside to taking their pawn now. But my guess is the hard part is going to be a move after that. Or maybe there's something else that I'm just not seeing, and if so, we'll find out. Okay, sorry, I thought they were going to take my rook. That doesn't make any sense, does it? So now if I take the rook, which is what I assume I would do, and if they take back, then I get in front of my pawn, correct? Or do I move the pawn? That's probably going to be the move where I'm going to have trouble deciding and have a chance of failing the puzzle. Okay. I am pretty sure from when I tried to study endgames a year or two ago, I need to get the king directly in front of the pawn. If I don't, if I start advancing my pawn first, then they get to stay in front of the pawn, I think. I think that's the problem with that. And then if I advance again, they just move forward and they're in front of the pawn and I can't get them out. But if I move forward, they can't stay in front of the pawn except by going backward. And then I move forward again, and then they have to move to one of the sides, and then I should be able to move to the other side. But can I move the pawn first? That's the question. If I move the pawn first, if they want to stay in front of the pawn and they go back, then I come forward and we have the same situation. Okay, well, if I move the pawn first, okay, sorry, it looks to me like the same thing happens either way, but let me just go through this again. I am pretty sure my instinct is telling me to get the king in front of the pawn first. But then if they just move to the side, I think I move to the side to keep them from coming back here? Or no? Let's see. If I get the king in front of the pawn and they move to the side, do I move the pawn forward again? But then they come back and get in front of me, and I'm not sure what to do. I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to do, because if I move the king first and they step aside, is that when I try to go around them? Because they can still get back in front of the pawn. Okay, no, but if I do that, I get back in front of them, and then they have to go to one side or the other, and I go to the other side and keep them from getting to those 3 squares, and then I can advance the pawn forward. Okay, I'm relying on instinct here, but I'm gonna put the king in front of the pawn. I don't know what difference it makes. Oh, it stopped. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's look at the analysis board, because what would they have done? I figured all that stuff out. What would they have done here before? If I had pushed this pawn forward, okay, it goes to drawn, but only if they play king to f2. Okay, if they play king to f2, then wouldn't I want to get in front of my pawn? It says it doesn't matter because they have the opposition and I can't advance to either one of those squares. And then whichever side I go to, that's the side they're going to go to. So if I try to go around this way, they're just going to move over. And if I move the pawn, they're going to get in front, and that's a draw. So that's the problem with moving the pawn first, which is why I didn't do it. But moving the king first, well, like I said, it says KD2 or KF2. That's what I thought. If they just step aside, okay, it says this is when I go here, but then wouldn't they be able to get in front again? It says they wouldn't. Okay, but what if I went king to D3? Why wouldn't they try to get in front? Okay, it does say king to E1, but it doesn't matter. And now I start advancing the pawn. And again, it says it doesn't matter which of these squares they go to. Now, I know if they go to one of those two over there, then I would get the opposition and be protecting all the squares that my pawn needs. But what if they get in front of me? Now it doesn't matter if I move the king or the pawn first. Okay, well, what if I moved the pawn first here? Or they're going to get back in front of it again. But now now I had an only move because now they have to go to one side or the other. And whichever side they choose, I would choose the opposite side. Okay, so if they went to this side, then I come here. Okay, well, I'm glad my instinct served me well on that one. It took a while, but that's one reason to study some of these endgames, I guess, because I didn't remember exactly why it made a difference, but it does. Oh my. All right, next puzzle. Another endgame puzzle. Okay, well, I mean, I do have a check in this position, but I'm not going to focus on checks, captures, and threats, I don't think, because it's an endgame puzzle. So let's go process of elimination. I don't think moving this pawn to either of those two squares makes any sense. Oh, I noticed one problem with the blue squares here is that I like to draw blue arrows, but they almost always disappear in the blue squares. There, that's better. Now my blue arrows show up just fine. Okay, so process of elimination. This pawn doesn't make any sense because they can either take it here or take it 3 different ways up there. I would like to start moving these pawns, but I don't know yet. Another option, oh, I do have a capture. I can take that pawn. I don't think, if it is a king move, I don't think any other king move makes any sense. I mean, I guess I could get in front of that pawn to keep them from coming toward mine. Okay, so both of those king moves make sense. Either taking the pawn, I mean, without following them out, just right off the top of my head. In fact, moving in front of their pawn right over here on d4 might make more sense than taking their pawn, because if I take it, then they can come toward this one and get out of the way of these in the process. However, very often, pawn-only endgames are very often about just a simple pawn race, who can get a pawn to the end first, and I just realized I have only one passed pawn. My opponent technically only has one passed pawn as well, and it's trying to come down this way. Now, their pawn is one step closer, but there's a problem with it. One is that, well, I can make two squares in my first move, and then we would be tied in this pawn race because we would both be about to cross. The other problem with their pawn is that it's my turn, so I would get to go again before they got to go again, and I'm going to promote first. And the third problem is that when I promote, it's going to be a check on their king. So they're going to have to slow down their pawn in order to move their king. So it might just be moving the F pawn. Now let me think about this. Do they have any other recourse? If I move the F pawn, well, neither one of these pawns, can get to promote because this pawn's in the way and also their king's in the way of that one. So, and neither one of those two pawns can promote right now, correct? So if I shoot my F pawn forward, I don't think they're going to come over here to the C file trying to pick up my C pawn. I think they're going to move that A pawn. And if they do, I just keep going and they keep going and I keep going and they keep going and I keep going. And then right there, a human opponent might realize at that point, that's when they're going to be in check. A computer will probably realize it before that. And I don't think they would push once more because if they did, I would promote with check. I think they would have to, I don't know where they would go at that point. I would still have to, be worried about that pawn that they've got really close. Oh my. Okay, I'm going to move my F pawn because I think for me, the hard part will be winning after that, but I think that's the only thing that makes sense right here. I'm going to play it. Okay, that surprised me that they came for this instead of that, because maybe they did that so that they wouldn't be in check when I promoted, but now their pawn is even one step further behind in the pawn race, right? Because now when I move this and they go, and I go, and they go, and I go, and they go, I'm going to promote while they're still 2 squares from promotion. And if they move it again, then I'm just going to come over here and check them and then pick up that pawn. So I think I still move the F pawn. Okay, I'm going to move it again. Oh, maybe it's going to be different. But again, I mean, nothing else makes sense. I can't catch that pawn, right? Okay. Okay, now again, doesn't make sense to do anything else at this point but promote. I assumed they would move one further, but then what would I do? Do I come back down here and check? Or do I come over here and get behind that pawn? Or do I come over here and check them? Well, I don't have any other moves that help me out at all other than promoting. So I'm going to promote. Oh my. That's interesting. The whole time I was worried about what's going to happen over here once their pawn is only 1 square from promotion. But the part of the puzzle that I actually had to solve were only moves. Like these are the only moves that made sense at any point in this puzzle. But that doesn't answer my question. Okay, I'm going to go to the analysis board. And what is the thing? After I promote, what do they do? Oh, I have mate in 15. The number dropped while I was watching it, but the only move that makes sense is B2. Okay, that's what I would expect them to play. And now it says I can check queen to C5. I can check on F2. It doesn't make that much difference. All right, I wonder if I played this against a strong bot, if I would actually be able to win. Because if I come down here and my best one is queen to C5, it says. If I check on C5, they're going to go over here, right? Not get in front of their pawn. If they get in the front of their pawn, then their pawn is stuck. Okay, so if I come over here and they go to D2, well, then I would pick up this pawn. Okay, then what if they got in front of their pawn? I'm curious. If I go here, it says they might go to D3, but then I would still pick up that pawn. Okay, but what if they went over here? Now it's mate in 9, but I start bringing my king. Okay, I'm going to bring my king. They're going to get out, hoping to promote, but then I'm going to check, and they have to get back in front of that pawn. And then I'm going to bring my king some more. D3 is best. And they're not going to come over here. Okay, so they're going to try to stave off mate by playing D4. Wait, my best move is G4 now? Oh, well, then I would probably lose here. I wonder how bad it would be if I took the pawn on A6. If I took this, okay, it's still mate in 5, but they would play probably H5. Wait, it says now if they play king to C1. Oh, I wouldn't check over here because they could block with promotion. Oh my, then why didn't they go king to C1 earlier? When I brought my king up here, it says they... let's see, when I brought my king here, they played D4 in my little scenario, but what if they just moved the king over? Oh, I have mate on E1. Okay, well, oh my goodness. Yeah, see, depending on how much time I had left, I might end up losing this after I promoted. My. All right, let's do another one. All right, I am playing with the black pieces. I'm doing a material count first. My opponent is way up on material. They have all their major pieces, and they have a bishop. All I have is a queen and a rook, and my rook is under attack. Well, let's look at checks. I do have a check over here on H3, but then they would take my rook. I think they would have to take my rook, and that they could block, but I think they would take my rook. I have 3 checks down here, 2 of which they would probably take my rook. But what about if I checked right here in front of the king on E1? In that instance, I think their only legal move would be to get out from in front of my queen, and then their rook would be pointed at my queen, but I would have this check, taking on F2 with my rook, and their only legal move would be to come up. And then would I have mate? I guess I could bring my queen up here to E3, and they would have to come up again or go over there. Would I have a ladder mate? I'm not sure. Once it gets 2 or 3 moves beyond what I'm seeing on the board, it's kind of hard to picture. It's kind of hard to picture that pawn being gone and my queen being over here on E3 and my rook being over there. But let's see, if they went to one of those, then I could bring my rook down. It's still safe. And my queen would be on E3, so they would have to go to one of these 2 squares, which, depending on where they had gone to on the 4th rank, they would go to one of those 2 squares on the 5th rank. But then I would not be able to follow up here with my queen because their queen and their pawn are guarding that square. At some point, would I take the rook? No, well, if their king was in the way, I would. Good gracious, I'm going to try that. Oh, they did move there. Well, then I'm going to try this. Oh, it wasn't that. Okay. Nice try, but I can go like this. Oh, behind the rook. I didn't even think of that. I can go like this. That sounds like a 4-year-old. I do this. I like this. So analysis board it is. After they played this, I have the huge advantage. This was the correct it's mate in 3. Well, I did not see that at all. Okay, so here I didn't even consider that as a possibility. But they can still go back there. But if they do, it's mate. Oh, but they have to go back there now. Well, all of you probably saw that immediately on the 1700 rated puzzle. I had to go here, and then that's mate. Why didn't I see that my queen could take that? Okay, well, I have enough time left for one more puzzle, at least, so let's go do that. Another one with pawn endgames, but with rooks. Okay, I am playing with the white pieces. Is it just this and then mate? Sorry, their king is pretty well trapped, isn't it? And they're using their own pawn to block their rook from seeing this. This one seems incredibly simple, but I'm probably missing something. Can they do anything if I put my king here on F7, preparing checkmate, which is rook to H3? And they can't, swing their rook around in front of their pawn to guard that square. And they can't move the pawn backwards so that, this wouldn't be a check. I'm going to play king to f7 and then checkmate. Oh, wow, that one seemed really simple, and so I have time for at least one more, because that one only took like a minute. Wait, that only has a 48% pass rate? That can't be right. Yeah, I took the number off of this puzzle page and copied it over here into a different URL to show the actual puzzles page, and it has a 70% pass rate over 38,000 attempts. But here on when I solved it, it said it only had 3,000 attempts and a 48% pass rate. So these numbers are messed up. I've pointed this out before. I couldn't believe that only had a 48% pass rate, and it does not. I'm done doing that. I'm going to try another puzzle and hopefully, finish out with a win here, because I was above 1850 and now I have to get back up there. Black to move. Do I have any checks? I do have 3 checks with the queen. I don't think any of those are good. On g1, either their rook or their king could capture me. On g2, either their rook or their king could capture me. And on g3, their king could capture me. But where's my knight at? All right, my friendly knight. I was going to say I do have a check with my knight as well, but what if my knight wanted to go here to fork their queen and their rook? And the way to get that knight there is to take this rook first. If I take the rook on g3 first with check, they don't have to take back. But if they don't, then I've gone up a piece. I think they're getting ready to checkmate me here. That's another reason I want to take that rook. If I take this rook, will they take back? If they do take back, then I have this fork with the knight, which is a check, and I win the queen for the knight, and then I would have a knight and a rook left for their rook in the corner. And yes, I would still have trouble winning that game, but that makes sense to me. Let me think about that. If I fork first, they move their queen, and I just get the rook, but they'll get my knight too. It'll be a knight for a rook, and then we'll each have a queen and a rook left. I think I take the rook first. I'm going to try that. Okay, and then it has to be this. And taking the queen. Okay, I did get back above 1850. I am curious really quick, what would happen if I had done the fork first? Let's see. Okay, I understand. I've hit my time limit. Fortunately for you, I will edit out a bunch of stuff here, so you won't have to spend as much time watching this as I did making it. Anyway, either way, I appreciate you spending your time here. Let me know what you're doing to get better at chess, and I'll see you next time.